Diplomacy in motion inside the US-Iran nuclear talks in Rome. After years of tension and missed opportunities, something interesting is happening behind closed doors in Rome. Iranian and American diplomats, still technically not speaking to each other directly, are inching toward the possibility of a new agreement over Iran's nuclear program. It's all still early, but the tone coming out of these meetings? Surprisingly optimistic, at least from the Iranian side. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi recently sat down with Iranian media after his second round of indirect negotiations with the US delegation in a week. And for once, his words didn't carry the usual layer of frustration or skepticism. Instead, he described the discussions as constructive and said things were moving forward. That's not nothing, especially given the fraught history here. The meetings, which took place in Rome, lasted nearly 4 hours. Araghchi didn't meet directly with Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff. Instead, messages were passed between them by an Omani official, classic diplomatic shuttle-style talks. According to Araghchi, the dialogue was serious, focused, and showing signs of progress. A third round is already scheduled for next week. Joining the conversation on what all of this could mean is Alex Vatanka, a senior fellow and Iran expert from the Middle East Institute in Washington, D.C. Speaking to a news outlet, Vatanka said he sees the Iranian side projecting cautious hope. That optimism has been echoed not just by Araghchi, but by Oman as well, which has been playing the role of mediator. The diplomacy is working, Vatanka said. The process is moving forward. There is hope. But he was quick to point out the fragile nature of it all. If the Americans start shifting the goalposts, as Iran fears, this could all unravel. So far, the Biden administration, or rather the Trump team's holdovers still managing the region's policy, haven't been as enthusiastic in public, but they haven't contradicted the Iranians either. That leaves the door open for more rounds, more discussions, and maybe even a breakthrough. Let's pause for a moment and talk about what moving the goalposts actually means here. According to Vatanka, Iran's main concern isn't just about uranium enrichment or how much nuclear material it's allowed to have. It's about trust, or rather the deep lack of it. The Iranian government still remembers 2018 vividly, when then-President Donald Trump walked away from the 2015 nuclear agreement, the JCPOA, which had taken years to negotiate under President Obama. That deal, from Iran's perspective, was working. They felt they were holding up their end of the bargain. Then Trump came in and tore it up. Now, Iran is saying, why should we sign another deal if you might just ditch it again? That's the real heart of the current talks: sanctions relief and long-term guarantees. Iran wants the U.S. to commit to something it can't easily back out of, no matter who's president. But the U.S. side, especially under Trump or his allies, tends to prefer more flexible, less binding arrangements. Trump himself has been vocal about wanting a better deal than the one struck in 2015, something tougher, broader, and harder to wiggle out of. Back to Rome. Araghchi, in his latest remarks, said the framework of the potential agreement is beginning to take shape. The technical focus, as expected, is on uranium enrichment, how much Iran can enrich, what happens to the stockpiles, and how to prevent any step toward weaponization. Technical teams, according to Iran, are scheduled to meet in Oman on Wednesday. If all goes well, another high-level political meeting could follow in Rome on Saturday. It's a classic two-track approach. Scientists and nuclear experts work out the details while diplomats haggle over the big picture. Meanwhile, Trump's stance remains unpredictable. As Vatanka pointed out, Trump wants results, and he wants them fast. He'd rather have a deal tomorrow than next month or next year, Vatanka said. The problem is, diplomacy doesn't work that way. Iran isn't interested in photo ops or vague promises. They want commitments, on paper with signatures. Iran feels burned, Vatanka added. They don't want to end up feeling humiliated again. And let's not forget the bigger geopolitical picture. Araghchi recently visited Moscow, where he voiced some doubts about the U.S. side's intentions. Although we have serious doubts about the intentions and motivations of the American side, he said, we will participate in tomorrow's negotiations with the seriousness of the Islamic Republic of Iran and full determination. So while Iran is sending signals that it wants a peaceful resolution and is willing to compromise, particularly on uranium enrichment, it's also making it clear that trust is a major obstacle. Enter Simon Mabon, an international relations expert based in the UK. He's been following the developments closely and offered his own take on where things might be headed. According to Mabon, the chances of reaching a full-fledged deal during this round of talks are slim, but the process itself matters. What we're seeing is a gradual building of trust, he said. That's the goal right now, getting both sides to a place where a bigger agreement becomes possible. But that won't be easy. Mabin believes Trump is likely pushing for a deal that goes well beyond nuclear issues, something stricter, more comprehensive, possibly even including Iran's missile program and regional influence. But Iran has already drawn a line in the sand there. It has said clearly missiles are off the table, they're not up for negotiation. So, if Trump is looking for a deal that tightly restricts uranium enrichment, missile development, and Iran's military footprint in the region, we could be headed for another stalemate. And then there's Russia. Iran and Russia have grown closer since the war in Ukraine began. Russia has supplied Iran with defense equipment and helped prop up its economy amid Western sanctions. Moscow could play a spoiler role or a stabilizing one. It depends on what it wants. Russia's interest here isn't necessarily aligned with the US. It might want to see a deal, but only one that doesn't give Washington more leverage in the region. Trump, after all, has been pushing for an end to the Ukraine war in a way that critics say favors Vladimir Putin. That dynamic complicates everything, so what's next? All eyes are now on the upcoming meetings in Oman and Rome. If the technical experts can agree on a framework for uranium enrichment, and if political negotiators like Aragchi and Witkoff can keep the momentum going, then maybe, just maybe, we'll see the outlines of a new agreement. But make no mistake, this is a fragile process. One misstep, one press conference too many, and it could all fall apart. Still, for the first time in a while, there's a flicker of hope. The door's not open wide, but it's not shut either. And in diplomacy, sometimes that's enough to get things started.